For 16 years, I sent assignments against Christians who pray, and I can tell you right now, there was one kind of believer we could never touch, the ones who prayed barefoot. And I don't mean the ones who just happened to kick off their shoes because it was a hot day and they were standing on their porch. I mean the ones who understood what it meant, the ones who did it on purpose. When their feet hit the ground, something happened in the spirit realm that made every single assignment I sent bounce back like it hit a wall made of fire. My name's Danny. I grew up in a small town out in the middle of nowhere, maybe 5,000 people. The kind of place where everybody went to the same church, knew each other's business, and pretended everything was fine behind closed doors. My dad left when I was 11, just walked out one morning and never came back. Mom worked double shifts at the packing plant trying to keep the lights on. And by 14, I was already running with the older crowd, the guys who rode motorcycles and played music that made your chest vibrate through the walls. That's where it started for me. Death metal shows in somebody's garage, then biker hangouts. Then one night, at a party in a barn outside town, someone showed me something that had nothing to do with music at all. I was recruited into the organization at 16. Didn't even fully understand what I was getting into. I just knew these guys had power, real power, not money power, not muscle power, something else. Something you could feel when you walked into a room with them. And for the next 16 years, I specialized in one thing: breaking the connection between Christians and their prayers. Not just blocking prayer. I'm talking about severing the line completely, making it so that when a believer opened their mouth and called on God, the signal never left the room. It died right there. I worked on at least 300 Christians during those years, probably more. I stopped counting around 250, and my success rate was around 87%. I kept records, we all did. The higher-ups required it. But here's what keeps me up at night, even 12 years after I gave my life to Christ. Most of those 300 Christians never even knew what hit them. They just thought God was ignoring them. They thought they weren't faithful enough. They thought something was wrong with them. They'd cry at night, wondering why heaven was silent. They were wrong. Heaven wasn't silent, the line was cut, and I was the one cutting it. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly why barefoot prayer terrifies the kingdom of darkness. And I'm going to show you why the ground itself responds to a believer who knows what they're carrying in their feet. Because this isn't about some mystical ritual or some new age trend about earthing. This is about understanding something that most churches don't teach and that most Christians have never been told. And that ignorance, that blind spot right there, that's exactly what the enemy counts on. Let me start with the first reason they fear it. The most basic assignment I ever ran against a Christian's prayer life. We called it the disconnect protocol, and it was devastatingly effective. Here's how it works. When a Christian prays, there's a connection that forms. Think of it like a signal. It goes from the believer through the spirit realm and reaches the throne of God. That signal has a frequency. It has a strength. And that frequency is strongest, absolutely strongest, when the believer is grounded. When I say grounded, I don't mean emotionally stable, I mean physically connected to the earth, barefoot, standing on real ground, not carpet over concrete, not tile over plywood, not laminate flooring in a climate-controlled building. Actual earth, dirt, grass, raw stone. Now, I didn't understand this at first. Nobody told me why it worked this way during my early training. My higher-ups just taught me that certain Christians were harder to hit than others, and for a long time, years actually, I just thought it was random. Like some believers had more faith than others, or maybe some had better spiritual genetics or something, but that wasn't it. That wasn't it at all. There was this woman named Grace. Lived way out in a rural area, farmland stretching to the horizon in every direction, little white house at the end of a dirt road, and she prayed every single morning before the sun came up on her back porch, barefoot, feet planted in the red dirt, hands lifted, voice raised, every morning without fail, rain or shine, cold or hot. Now I was assigned to her specifically because her son was getting close to leaving the organization. He was a mid-level operative, been with us about 6 years, and he was starting to question things. Asking questions you're not supposed to ask. Talking to people outside the brotherhood, and the leadership traced it back to one source. His mama's prayers. That woman was praying her boy out of darkness, and they could feel it. So they sent me to shut down the source. I set up my protocols. I sent confusion every morning at 3:45, about 15 minutes before she usually woke up. Targeted fatigue, the kind that makes your bones feel like lead. Mental fog so thick you can't even remember what you were going to pray about. Distraction signals, sudden noise, a dog barking, a phone ringing, anything to break her focus. I hit her with everything I had, everything in my training. And every single morning that woman would get up, walk out on that porch, slip off her shoes, and plant her feet in the dirt. And the second her skin touched that ground, it was like a switch flipped. Every assignment I sent dissolved, every single one, like smoke hitting a furnace. Gone. I worked Grace for 3 solid weeks, 21 days of my best work, my most sophisticated protocols, and I got nowhere, not 1 inch. Her prayers went up every morning, clear as a bell, and there was nothing I could do about it. I reported back to the higher-ups, and they told me something I'll never forget. They said, "She's grounded. You can't break a grounded connection. The earth carries it. Find another way in." That was the first time I heard that word used like that. Grounded. Not grounded like disciplined. Not grounded like mentally stable. Grounded like electrically connected to the earth itself. Like the soil was an amplifier, and her bare feet were the plug. And it changed everything I thought I knew about how prayer works in the spirit realm, because what most Christians don't realize, what most pastors have never been taught, is that the earth itself carries a spiritual frequency. God made it that way on purpose. Genesis says he formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed life into him. Your body and the earth share the same origin material. You came from it. And when your bare feet touch real ground, something activates. A connection that the enemy cannot jam, cannot scramble, cannot block, cannot interfere with. It's like a direct line that bypasses everything the enemy has built in the spiritual atmosphere. It goes straight down and then straight up, and nothing we had could stop it. Grace's son walked away from the organization 2 months later, gave his life to Christ at a revival meeting in a tent church, and I had nothing to do with stopping it because I couldn't stop it. Her prayers went straight through every single morning. Not one was intercepted, not one. Now, before I get to the next one, I need to stop here for a second. You just learned something that most Christians will never figure out on their own. There are people, real people, trained operatives, whose only job is to break the connection between you and God when you pray. That's all they do. That's their assignment. And they're good at it. And they're organized. And they keep records of how well it's working. If you've been praying, really praying, pouring your heart out 5, 10, 20 times, and every single time something shuts it down. Sudden, overwhelming fatigue that hits you like a wall the moment you kneel. Your mind going completely blank right in the middle of a sentence. This powerful urge to check your phone that comes from nowhere. Headaches that appear exactly when you start to pray and vanish the second you stop. Thoughts wandering so hard, you can't hold a single verse in your mind for more than 3 seconds. Look, this is not spiritual weakness. This is not lack of faith. This is not your fault. I'm telling you right now, that is not what's happening. This is a targeted assignment, and that assignment is still running against you right now. While you're sitting here listening to me, it is working. It has not stopped. It does not take breaks. The techniques I just told you about, the ones against your prayer connection, they're the same techniques used against your finances when money comes in and vanishes before the bills are paid. Against your marriage when fights blow up out of nothing, over nothing, and leave wreckage that takes weeks to clean up. Against your kids when they start pulling away from everything you've tried to teach them. Against your health when doctors run every test and find nothing wrong, but you know deep down in your gut that something is off, that something is working against your body. There's a protocol. Destroying assignments. The 14-day deliverance protocol. It identifies and breaks all assignments currently active in your life, every single one. I went through this myself after I gave my life to Christ. I had 16 years of doors I'd opened, 16 years of darkness that had to be closed. This is what closed every door I had opened. This is what broke the cycles I had started against other people. This is what protected my own family after I walked away from the organization and they came after me. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. If you don't break these assignments now, they don't just expire. They don't have a shelf life. Each day you wait equals one more day the enemy has ground in your life. One more day of your prayers hitting a wall. One more day under something you didn't even know was there. The link is in the description. Destroying assignments. Click it, read it, decide. All right. Let me tell you about the second thing. See, the disconnect protocol was level 1. Once I learned that grounded believers were harder to hit, the higher-ups introduced me to something much more sophisticated, much darker. They called it the contamination protocol. And the idea behind it was simple but terrifying. If you can't block a prayer from going up, you contaminate the ground the person stands on. You make the earth itself reject the connection. You turn the amplifier into a dead zone. I know this sounds extreme. I know some of you are sitting there thinking this can't be real, but I was there. I did it. I'm telling you what I did. There was a man named Tom. Big guy. Former construction worker, built like a truck. Good man. Strong believer. Loved his family. Read his Bible every morning. And he prayed every morning in his backyard. Barefoot. Feet on the grass. Standing right in the middle of his yard. Just like Grace, I couldn't touch his prayers when he was grounded. Couldn't get anywhere near them. So the higher-ups told me to contaminate his ground. They gave me a team, 2 other operatives, and we went to his property on a Thursday night when we knew the family was at a church event. We went to his backyard, the exact spot where he prayed every morning, and we performed a ritual on his soil. I'm not going to tell you exactly what we did because that information doesn't need to be out there, but I'll tell you the purpose. The purpose was to break the bond between his feet and the earth, to scramble the frequency, to make the ground reject his signal instead of carrying it, and for about 2 weeks it worked. Tom noticed. He couldn't explain it, but he felt it. He told his wife Carol, "Something's off, my prayers don't feel the same, it's like talking into a dead phone." He even started wearing shoes outside because the ground felt wrong under his feet. He said it felt cold, not temperature cold. He couldn't describe it right, but he said the ground felt dead, like the life had gone out of it. Now here's what happened next, and this is the part of the story that changed my perspective on everything. Carol, Tom's wife, she looked at him across the kitchen table and she said, "Thomas, you go back out there tomorrow morning, barefoot. The ground belongs to God, not to them. Whatever they did, God can undo." Tom went out the next morning, barefoot. He stood on the exact same contaminated spot. And he didn't pray a normal prayer. He didn't pray a nice prayer. He prayed with fire. He declared that the ground under his feet belonged to the Lord God Almighty. He declared that no curse, no ritual, no assignment, no contamination had authority over God's earth. He stamped his feet on that ground, and he said, "This dirt was here before the devil was, and it answers to my Father." And I felt it. I was monitoring Tom from a location across town, running my protocols, tracking the signal. And I felt the moment it broke. It was like something shattered in the spirit realm. The contamination we'd placed, 3 operatives worth of work on a Thursday night, broke in one morning. 1 prayer session. 1 man standing barefoot on ground that belonged to God. Because Tom didn't just pray on the ground. He reclaimed it. He took authority over the earth the way Adam was supposed to, and the earth responded. It responded to his faith. It responded to his authority. And every protocol we'd set up on that soil was destroyed in about 15 minutes. That was the first time I seriously questioned what I was doing with my life. Now, if this is hitting home for you, if you've been feeling like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, if the place where you pray feels different, heavier, colder, more oppressive than it used to, I want you to participate in something powerful right now. In the comments, write out this declaration: "I reclaim my ground for God in Jesus' name," and I mean write it out. Don't just think it. When you participate in public declaration, when you put it in writing for the whole world to see, something shifts in the spirit realm. I've seen it happen when believers participate together. There's a compounding effect. One person declares it, it's powerful. 100 people declare it, it's devastating to the enemy. So participate now, take 10 seconds, write it out. Now let me tell you about the third reason they fear barefoot believers. And this one was the highest level operation I was ever part of. Because the organization didn't just target individuals, they targeted churches, entire congregations. And when it came to barefoot prayer, they targeted churches that were waking up to it. There was a church I was assigned to. Small congregation, maybe 70, 80 people on a good Sunday. out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by farmland and open fields, the kind of church you'd drive past and never notice. Old white building with a steeple, gravel parking lot, nothing fancy. The pastor, his name was Samuel, started something new one spring. He started holding outdoor prayer services, Saturday mornings, 6 o'clock, behind the church, everyone barefoot on the grass. He called it ground prayer. Simple name. No theology behind it that he could articulate at first. He just felt led to do it. He told his congregation, "I don't know why, but the Lord told me we need to get our feet on the ground when we pray." My higher-ups found out about it within 3 weeks. I don't know how. They had networks, informants, monitoring systems. I never asked too much about that part, but they found out. And they panicked. I don't use that word lightly. These were men who had been doing the work for 20, 30 years. Men who had taken down megachurch pastors. Men who had destroyed marriages, ministries, finances, entire family lines. Nothing fazed them. But when they heard about Pastor Samuel's ground prayer, they called an emergency meeting on a Tuesday night, and they sent 3 of us to work on that one congregation, 3 operatives for 70 people. Normally 1 operative handles an entire church of 500. 3 for 70 meant they were scared. We tried everything in the playbook. I sent confusion to Pastor Samuel during his sermon prep. Another operative sent financial pressure to the church treasurer, unexpected repairs, donations dropping, bills doubling. The third worked on creating division among the deacons, suspicion, gossip, offended feelings over nothing. We even went out to the field behind the church and tried the contamination protocol on the ground where they gathered every Saturday. We spent an entire night working that soil, and nothing worked. Nothing. The confusion I sent to the pastor bounced off like it hit a shield. The financial pressure got absorbed. Every time a bill went up, some anonymous donation would appear. The division among the deacons lasted about 3 days before one of them had a dream, stood up in a meeting, and apologized for everything. And the contamination on the ground, Saturday morning, those 70 people stood barefoot on it and prayed. And within 10 minutes, every protocol we'd placed was gone. 70 believers standing on the same patch of earth, praying together, barefoot. It wasn't just impossible to block. It was destructive to our assignments. Our protocols didn't just fail, they got destroyed. Some of them bounced back on us. The operative who did the division work started fighting with his own wife that week, out of nowhere, for no reason. That church grew from 70 to over 300 in 8 months. People were driving 40, 50 miles to come to those Saturday morning barefoot prayer services. And something was happening that none of us in the organization could explain. People were getting healed. Not in the services, not during a sermon, during the barefoot prayer. A woman who had been dealing with chronic pain for 8 years stood barefoot on that grass and prayed, and the pain left and never came back. A man who had been fighting alcoholism for 15 years stood barefoot in that field and something broke. He walked away sober and stayed sober. A couple who had been separated for 11 months came to the same service, stood next to each other barefoot on that field, and by the end of the prayer time, they were holding hands and crying. We couldn't fight it. 3 operatives working full-time for 8 months, and we had 0 results. 0. The higher-ups eventually pulled us off the assignment and classified that church as an untouchable zone. That's a designation they almost never use. In my 16 years, I only heard of it being used twice, and one of those was Pastor Samuel's church. Pastor Samuel kept saying the same thing to every new person who walked through the door. Take off your shoes. This is holy ground. Not because the building is special, because the ground answers to God's people when they stand on it in faith. Before I get into how everything changed for me personally, I need to be straight with you about something. YouTube shut us down. Monetization, memberships, donations, all gone. They did it to thousands of channels that expose what the enemy doesn't want exposed. I know what a silencing assignment looks like. I've built them, I've run them. This is one. But we're not quitting. This channel is staying right here. We're going to keep posting more, not less, but we also set up a private community on Patreon for what we can't do on YouTube. No platform gets to decide when God's work stops. As a witness, you get exclusive spiritual warfare content, real confessions, strategic polls, and discussions most believers will never see. Stuff that would get pulled down here in 48 hours. As a confessor, you get everything plus a monthly personal consultation with a detailed PDF identifying the exact assignment against you, how it was built, and the steps to destroy it. A personalized blueprint for your freedom. And if you used to support this channel through memberships or donations, you can still do that inside Patreon. The enemy took that from YouTube. He doesn't get to take it from a community he can't touch. The link is in the description. Do not wait. The enemy does not wait. Now let me get into why barefoot prayer is so much more dangerous when you add movement. Because standing barefoot is powerful. I've shown you that. Grace proved it. Tom proved it. Pastor Samuel's whole church proved it. But walking barefoot while praying? That takes it to another level entirely. And the organization knows it. See, when you stand in one spot barefoot and pray, you create a fixed point of connection. One spot, one signal. Strong, unbreakable. But when you walk while praying barefoot, every step becomes a new connection point. Every footprint becomes a declaration burned into the spirit realm. The believer isn't just sending prayers up from one location, they're taking territory with every step. There was a man named Pete, lived on about 2 acres of land outside a quiet suburb. Not wealthy, regular guy, worked at a hardware store. But Pete had a habit that his wife told him about, something she'd read in the Bible about walking the land. And every single morning, before the sun came up, Pete would walk the entire perimeter of his property, barefoot, praying, step by step, around the whole 2 acres, declaring protection over his family, his home, his marriage, his finances, his children's futures. We could not touch Pete. We could not touch his wife. We could not touch his 3 kids. We couldn't even get our protocols close to his property. It was like hitting a wall that extended around his entire boundary line. And I don't mean metaphorically. I mean there was a spiritual perimeter around that land that our assignments could not penetrate. I worked on Pete's family for 4 months. 4 months of daily protocols, 4 months of monitoring, strategizing, escalating to more aggressive techniques. 4 months and nothing. Not one assignment landed. His finances stayed stable. His marriage stayed strong. His kids stayed in church, stayed faithful, stayed protected. I couldn't even give his dog a bad day. One of the senior operatives, a man who'd been in the organization for over 25 years, told me, "Give it up. That man walks his land every morning. He's not just praying, he's marking territory. Every footprint is a boundary line in the spirit realm. You can't cross what he's marked. Nobody can." That broke something in me. The idea that a regular guy, a hardware store employee with no seminary degree, no special anointing that anybody could see, no famous ministry behind him, could make himself and his entire family completely untouchable just by walking his yard barefoot every morning and praying. It was so simple, so basic, and we had absolutely nothing in our entire arsenal to counter it. I remember sitting in my car after that conversation, parked on a back road about half a mile from Pete's property, and I just sat there, engine off, staring at the steering wheel, because for the first time in almost 14 years, I was confronted with a truth I couldn't argue with. The simplest believers, the ones without money, without platforms, without influence, the ones the world overlooks entirely, they were the ones we couldn't touch. Not the megachurch pastors, not the televangelists, not the people with the big prayer conferences and the best-selling books, the quiet ones, the faithful ones, the ones who just got up every morning and put their feet on God's dirt and talked to him like he was standing right there. And you want to know what scared me most about Pete? It wasn't just that his family was protected, it was that the protection was growing. Every month Pete walked that property line, the perimeter got stronger. After 6 months, we couldn't even work protocols on his neighbors. His next-door neighbor started going to church. The family across the street reconciled a marriage that had been dead for 2 years. A teenager down the block quit using drugs, and nobody could explain why. Pete's barefoot prayers weren't just protecting his 2 acres, they were spreading. The territory he was claiming with his feet was expanding beyond his fence line, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing we could do about it. Now, if you've been feeling like your home doesn't have protection, like the enemy keeps getting in no matter how many times you anoint the doors and windows, if problems keep showing up inside your house, inside your marriage, inside your family, like something has access that shouldn't, I want you to participate with me right now. In the comments, declare this: I walk my ground and the enemy cannot cross in Jesus' name. Don't scroll past this. Don't tell yourself you'll do it later. Write it out right now, 10 seconds of your time. But the impact in the spirit realm, that lasts. So now let me bring it all together. Because what I haven't told you yet is the deepest reason the organization fears barefoot prayer. And this goes all the way back to the beginning. Not the beginning of my story, the beginning, Genesis, the garden. See, the grounding connection is real, makes prayer unblockable. I've shown you that. The territorial marking through walking barefoot, that's real too. Creates a perimeter nothing can cross. But there's a third thing. The thing the higher-ups talked about in hushed tones. The thing they never put in writing. They called it authority transfer. When a believer prays barefoot on real ground, something ancient transfers. The authority that God gave man over the earth in the beginning, the dominion that Adam had in the garden, it reactivates. Think about it. What was Adam doing in the garden? Walking barefoot, on ground that God had made, and he had complete dominion. Nothing could touch him. No sickness, no poverty, no confusion, no death. The earth served him because God gave him authority over it. The enemy lost access to that authority when Adam fell. When sin entered, the connection between man and earth was damaged. Not destroyed, damaged. And it's been damaged ever since. But when a believer, washed in the blood of Christ, reconnects with the earth through faith and prayer, that original dominion switches back on. The authority that Adam lost gets restored through Christ. And the ground feels it. The ground responds to it. This is why God told Moses to take off his sandals at the burning bush. The ground was holy not because of the bush. The ground was holy because God was restoring the connection. This is why the priests walked barefoot in the temple. This is why Joshua was told to walk the land that God had given him. This is why Jesus told the disciples to shake the dust off their feet when they left a place that rejected them. It wasn't about hygiene. It wasn't symbolic. It was about authority. The ground responds to the feet of God's people. There was a moment, about 2 years before I left the organization, when I was sitting in a high-level meeting with the senior leadership. 7 men around a table in a basement, and one of the oldest, a man who had been doing the work for over 30 years, leaned forward and said something that cracked my entire world open. He said, "The day they figure out that the ground is theirs, we're done, all of it. Our entire operation, every assignment, every protocol, every contamination, every disconnect, all of it depends on one thing. Believers staying disconnected from the earth. Keep them in buildings, keep them in shoes, keep them on carpet and concrete. Keep them comfortable, because the moment they step outside barefoot and pray with authority, with real authority, every assignment we've ever sent hits the ground and dies." He said it like he was tired, like he'd known this for decades and was exhausted from working around it. And I sat there staring at the table, not saying a word, while everything inside me was breaking apart. Because I realized we weren't fighting against people. We were fighting against the truth. And the truth was so simple, so basic, so obvious, that it was almost embarrassing. God gave them the earth. He made them from it. He designed the connection. And we were spending all our resources, all our energy, all our operations trying to keep them from touching it, from stepping on it, from feeling it under their feet. If this is speaking to your spirit right now, if you know deep down that something has been blocking your connection to God, if you felt the disconnect for months, maybe years, but you couldn't name what it was, participate one more time. In the comments, write this: "My feet belong on God's earth, and no assignment survives my prayer." Write it out. Put it in the record. Let the enemy see it. 2 years after that meeting, I was done. I couldn't do it anymore. The thing that finally broke me was a woman named Sarah. She lived in a trailer park outside a dying factory town, had almost nothing, drove a car that barely started half the time, fed her 3 kids on food bank donations and whatever she could stretch from a part-time cleaning job, and she prayed. Every single night after her kids went to sleep, she'd step outside her trailer, barefoot, on a little patch of grass between the trailers that couldn't have been bigger than a parking space, and she'd pray, quiet, steady, faithful, every night. I was assigned to break her finances permanently. The leadership wanted Sarah destroyed, And I'm not using that word loosely. They wanted her broken because her prayers were protecting half the people in that trailer park without her even realizing it. Her faith was so concentrated, so pure, so constant, that it was creating a spiritual shield that extended to her neighbors. People who didn't even go to church were being protected because Sarah prayed barefoot on that little patch of grass every night. I tried for 6 months. 6 months against a woman who had no money, no church backing her, no prayer group, no mentor, no husband. Just her, her Bible, her bare feet, and that little patch of dirt. And I couldn't do it. Not one assignment penetrated, not one. Her kids stayed healthy. Her car kept running when it shouldn't have. Food showed up at her door from people who didn't even know why they felt compelled to bring it. She got a raise at her cleaning job. Her landlord reduced her rent for no logical reason. Everything I threw at her just dissolved. 6 months, 300 Christians in my career and an 87% success rate. And Sarah, a broke single mother in a trailer park, was in the 13% I could never touch. That's when I walked away for good. I got in my truck one Tuesday afternoon, didn't pack anything, didn't tell anyone in the organization. Just got in the truck and drove. Drove past the town limit. Drove past the county line. Ended up 3 towns over at a little brick church I'd spotted on a drive months earlier. The sign out front said, Wednesday night Bible study at 7. It was 6:45. I sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, trying to decide if I was really going to do this. 16 years of my life. Everything I knew, everyone I knew, all of it connected to the organization. Walking in that church door meant walking away from all of it. And I knew what happened to people who walked away. I'd seen it. I'd helped make it happen. But I kept thinking about Sarah, standing barefoot on that little patch of grass, praying for kids she could barely feed, protected by nothing but God and dirt, and the entire brotherhood of darkness couldn't make a dent. I walked in during their Wednesday night Bible study. About 30 people in a room that smelled like old hymnals and coffee. I made it about 4 steps past the door before my legs gave out. Fell on my face at the front of that church and cried harder than I'd cried since my dad left when I was 11. Ugly crying. The kind where you can't breathe and you can't see and snot is running everywhere and you don't care. 26 years of pain coming out all at once. The pastor came down from the platform, old guy, white hair, gentle hands, knelt beside me on that carpet. Didn't ask questions, didn't demand a confession, didn't ask what I'd done or who I'd hurt. Put his hand on my back and said 5 words. Welcome home, son, it's over. I was a wreck for the next 2 years. You don't walk out of 16 years of organized darkness without paying for it. They sent assignments against me. They sent people to follow me. They tried to pull me back in. There were nights I couldn't sleep, nights I heard things, nights I saw things in the corners of my room. But I did what Tom did, what Pete did, what Grace did, what Sarah did. I went outside, barefoot, and I prayed on the ground, every morning when the sun came up, every night before I went to bed. I walked my property line in bare feet, and I declared that the ground belonged to God, and that no assignment from my past could cross the line I was walking. And every single assignment they sent against me hit the dirt and died. That was 12 years ago. I haven't gone a single day without barefoot prayer since. So let me bring this all together for you. The organization fears Christians who pray barefoot because of 3 things. 1, the grounding connection makes your prayer signal impossible to block, impossible to scramble, impossible to disconnect. 2, walking barefoot while praying creates territorial boundaries in the spirit realm that no assignment, no protocol, no operative can cross. And 3, barefoot prayer reactivates the original dominion that God gave man over the earth in the beginning, the authority that the enemy has been trying to keep you from accessing since the garden. They spend their entire operation trying to keep believers disconnected from the earth, inside buildings, inside shoes, on carpet, on concrete, in comfort, in ignorance. Because the moment you step outside, take off your shoes, put your bare feet on the ground that God made, and pray with the authority of a redeemed child of the Most High, every assignment against your life hits the dirt and dies. Look, I spent 16 years on the wrong side. I know how this stuff works because I did it. I know the protocols because I wrote some of them. And I'm telling you tonight, you don't have to live under these assignments for one more day. The solution is literally under your feet. It's been there the whole time. If you want the complete protocol for identifying and destroying every assignment currently active in your life, grab Destroying Assignments. The link is in the description. 14 days, step by step. It'll walk you through everything. My name's Danny. I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere, the kind of place people drive through on the highway and never stop. I spent 16 years doing things I can never take back. Things that hurt people who never even knew I existed. Things that keep me up at night even now, 12 years later. Things I'll carry with me until the day I die. But God, He didn't leave me in the pit. He didn't let the darkness keep me. He reached down into 16 years of organized evil, grabbed hold of a broken man who didn't deserve a second look, and pulled me out. He washed me clean. He put my bare feet on His ground and showed me what real authority looks like. Not the fake authority the organization promised. Not the counterfeit power that crumbles when a single mother stands on a patch of grass and prays. Real authority, the kind that comes from the one who made the ground in the first place. And now I spend every single day making sure you know what I know, so you can walk in the same freedom I found, so that no assignment can touch you, so that no protocol can reach you, so that when you step outside and put your bare feet on God's earth, the entire kingdom of darkness has to back up. Let me pray for you. Father, I lift up every single person watching right now. Every person who has felt the disconnect, every person whose prayers have been hitting walls they couldn't see, every person who thought you weren't listening, when the truth is the line was being cut by people like me. Forgive me for what I did, Lord, and use my testimony to set them free. I break every disconnect assignment. I break every contamination protocol. I break every barrier between this believer and the ground you created for them. I declare that when their bare feet touch your earth, every assignment is destroyed, every seal is broken, every curse is shattered, every chain falls off, every lie is exposed, every operative is scattered. Father, let them walk on holy ground, let them reclaim their territory, let them pray with the authority you gave them from the very beginning, in the garden, when you formed them from the dust and breathed life into them. Restore the connection, restore the dominion, restore the power, restore the signal. Let every prayer reach your throne unblocked, unhindered, unbroken. Let every step they take in bare feet mark territory that the enemy can never reclaim. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. From the pit to the cross. See you in the next one.